Hello everybody out there in different parts of the world. How are you keeping today? I've been setting up my live here for the last half hour, and 2.5 minutes ago everything crashed and it all fell over. So everything normal today. Welcome to Sunday. It is 2 p.m. in Perth, Western Australia. It is quite a cool day today. First weekend of November is traditionally in Australia, as far as I'm concerned anyway, in Western Australia, the beginning of summer. And yesterday it was 37 degrees, but today is much nicer. So welcome to everybody. Welcome to Patreons. I'm going to see if I can answer the Patreon questions first. That's often possible. So if any of you guys want to start asking questions, please go ahead and do so. So, I titled it Frantic because, well, something has happened. Good thing has happened in the last week that I didn't expect to happen for at least another 6 months, and that is that the 2.8 Auto Landcruiser, I've been given the option of one that is in the first batch to arrive in Western Australia, and I'm probably going to go for that. If anybody can, and the subsequent rush around to organize stuff, because I have to buy it, and but it's exciting. I'd like some feedback from you, please. From Donnie, thank you. I'm hoping you're hearing me. Is the audio volume good? I deliberately I'm running the show so that you would be awake in South Africa. I know I've got a lot of people in South Africa following the show, particularly because of the Africa Landcruiser build. Sorry, I got to calm myself down because I was frantically busy trying to pull the machinery together, and I did it in the nick of time. So, and I've got myself my first nice ice cold Coke of the day. And I thought that you guys in South Africa, a particular interest now for you guys. On Wednesday this week, I reveal the color. So, hello from Paris. Hello, David from Paris. Drew from Botswana. One of my favorite countries in the world, without question. I lived in Botswana, if you know, for a year. 1991. Hello from Fremantle, of course. It's 40 minutes from where I live. Perth, audio good in South Africa. Technical is all good for the stream. Thank you very, very much. Lots of people from that state. Michigan, West Michigan, that's Works, IRL, Michigan, USA. I love it when different people... You know, when I was a little boy, I used to have this little game. I spent a lot of time on my own, and this little game, and I used to call it Studio. And because I had wired up my little transistor radio. It was a little Philips transistor radio, kind of this big. And I'd wired it up so if I spoke into a microphone, I could actually hear my voice coming out of the radio. And as a little boy, and I'm talking about 10, 12 years old, and I would think to myself, this might seem naive now, because I think kids of 10, 12 are a lot more technically advanced than we were then. And I was wondering, it's coming out of the speaker of the radio, because I'd wired it that way. I wonder how many people are actually listening to me. And it's amazing. And that was, of course, in my bedroom after school. And here I am in my home, and I have currently how many people? Just under 100 viewers watching the show live. So welcome to everybody. Morning from the Lake District, UK. Yeah, my favourite part of the UK, actually. Up north. Yeah, up north. I love that. Is that a Yorkshire accent? I'm not going to do English accents. Beautiful part of England. New Zealand. That's great. Sorry about the rugby. If you had to know, who was I supporting? To be honest, my father's was a he's long gone, true blue Kiwi. He was born in Napier, and I've always supported the All Blacks, and I was rooting for the All Blacks. But the South Africans came a well-deserved second. Don't shoot me for saying the words well-deserved. It was fantastic. You guys did a brilliant job, and you're very proud of yourselves, and you have every right to be proud of yourselves. So well done that. Durango, Colorado, Yukon, Canada, Cape Town, South Africa, Limpopo, South Africa. I have a little bit of a I have a little bit of a I'm going to have a little bit of a rant a little later on, just a little, about some of the South Africans reacting to my recent video, which was basically a brief expose of what they're doing. Beautiful interiors on the troop carriers, and I'm going to have one of these built, and it was all very, very positive, but you guys had a very, very bad reaction to the few negative things that I mentioned in the video, and I want to tackle you on that a little bit. And I've calmed down since earlier this morning. Was kind of it's no longer it's actually, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm gonna get to that a little bit later. I'm gonna start with the Tasmania story. I, as you may know, on my podcast, did a story about Tasmania, basically making it very, very difficult and very expensive for influencers. These are producers like myself. We shoot with a very small crew, sometimes no crew at all, and just one person and a camera, and we share stuff, and we are called, not necessarily by our own, because of our own wishes, but we are called influencers. We influence people by what we do. And influencers, everybody's an influencer to one degree or another. We are professional influencers. And we do that because, I'll give you an example. Olight has recently said, you're building that Africa vehicle, we would love to be part of that. Can we supply you with some torches and things? And they sent me a couple of, and this is just one, and I was shooting a video earlier about this beautiful stuff. And I'll do a little review on it, and we're equipping the Africa Landcruiser with Olight because they offered it. And everything is out in the open. Everybody understands this is a sponsorship as such. I'm not giving me any money, but they offered, and their equipment is really nice. So when they said, would you like to, we would like to equip that vehicle, if you could just do a video or so on and use the stuff on your trips, that's enough for us. I, therefore, am an influencer. And any of you who believe me when I say, I mean, this arrived, yesterday, and it's beautiful quality. I haven't used it yet, but the moment I say that, you are influenced by that, whether you like it or not. You might have another product that you prefer, but some of you will trust what I'm saying, or any other influencer, whether we're talking about equipment, vehicles, products, hotels, B&Bs, shop fronts, whatever we're doing. We influence people. So in Tasmania, my reason for running that story was the government is not happy about people promoting Tasmania because they don't have control over it. They like to have control. Governments, no matter where, want control. That's their thing. Okay? So now somebody is promoting and they have no control over it, and they start getting jittery. What happens if? Well, what happens if what? We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Well, it's been happening successfully without you even thinking about it for 10 years. Why do you suddenly have a problem just because one influencer broke some rules? That influencer that broke the rules was caught and pulled to, and it was sorted. Because he didn't just admit it, he showed what he had done on a public forum. So it's, and the reaction, some of the reaction has been, well, we want to keep things beautiful and we don't want influencers. That's an incredibly selfish thing for you in Tasmania to say, if you think that way, because you're saying these businesses that rely on people coming in and spending money in their shops and spending money in their restaurants and spending money in their B&Bs and hotels, they rely on influencers to a degree to send people there, and they support their families with that business. And you are saying no, that's not allowed, because that industry, those B&Bs, the restaurants, it's the cheapest publicity by such a huge measure. So many of these small organizations, businesses, family businesses, let's call them family businesses, because most of them are, can't afford to advertise in the press. So what do? They go to influencers. Why? Because the influencers will send people there, and the influencers, most of the time, don't charge a cent. So what is the Tasmanian government doing? Well, since you aren't charging them anything, we'll charge them. We will penalise those people promoting our place, our communities, our families. Why? Because they don't have control. There's no other reason. There's no other logical reason why they would do that. There's an article, in fact, if you go onto the video description in this video, there's a link to a newspaper article on the follow-up. And I've heard through the grapevine that Tasmania they're not admitting to anything. Of course they wouldn't. But they are actually changing things. They are actually looking into it. I'm glad they're looking into it, because they need to look into it. Because the wrong people are being penalised and are suffering from this. When I say the wrong people, small family businesses and influencers. Small family businesses. You're penalising small family businesses on both sides of the argument by the fact that you want control. We have, as influencers, no desire to break the rules. The only thing in the article that they went on about was drones, as if drones are such a big problem. They're not a problem, because if we fly a drone in a prohibitive area and we put it public, we'll get hammered. And most influencers don't, because they know it's not allowed. They don't break the rules. Why would they break the rules? Why would they do something that they can't film and make public? Because their job and their livelihoods relies on them filming things that everybody can do, and then they can be an influence for the good for those other people to do it. So I think that the Tasmanians who have come back and said, go away, we don't like influencers, unbelievably selfish. I have been called a moron for ordering a new 2.8 Landcruiser. All right, I'm a moron. Anybody ordering a new Landcruiser 2.8, really, you're a moron. Let's be morons together. Mine is on its way. I had a message from my dealer. I'll give a shout out to them. That's Grand Toyota in Wangara. They've always been good to me. And they called me and said, the Sandy type that you ordered, we don't know when it's coming. We're unclear about that, but there is the very, very first one that we will get will be arriving middle towards the end of November. Would you like it? It's white. I wouldn't normally have bought a white one, but the other side is this. I wrap them, so why wouldn't I want a white one? And the second thing is that if I'm the very first in Australia to do reviews on this vehicle, that's going to be good for business. So I've said yes. So this is a bit of a sad announcement, really, because I am actually putting a video out next week, the sale on my grey troop carrier. I am actually going to sell it. I don't have the financial resources to store troop carriers, all the ones that I build. I do sell and then plough the money back into the new build and make content, and my living is content. If my living wasn't content, I wouldn't change my trippy. I absolutely love it. This grey one it's a fabulous vehicle. Honestly, it's absolutely fabulous. Could I make a better one with the new one? I don't know. I think I can, of course, because you learn from things. I think I can do a better job with the interior. As many people have said to me, you will miss the V8. The V8's great. La 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 la. Similar number of people have come to me and said the 2.8 is fantastic. It will work brilliantly. I will find out. I'm happy to take the risk, and that's part of what I do for a living. And I'm very grateful that I can actually do it and just sort of pick and choose and just. I like that idea. What would I do with this? And I sit and I lie awake at night thinking, how am I going to do this? And then I walk around my troopy and think, next time I'll give you an example. I spent a lot of money on the sound system on my current troopy, and it sounds fantastic, but doesn't actually sound any better than a system that I put in my green troopy, which was probably half the price. Not probably, maybe 2/3 the price. It doesn't sound any better. So I'll spend a little bit less, and that kind of stuff. I get to do it. I love it. Let me see if any of you Patreons are out there. Okay, I'm going to have to refresh that. All right. I have not seen, Hamish, I have not seen the Landcruiser Mini at all. I've heard about it. I don't know anything about, to be honest with you, I should actually. You're saying it is perhaps a competitor to the Jimny. You're finding the volume a little lower than other podcasts. Should I crank it up just slightly? I'll crank up my gain just a little bit for you guys. Up it goes. There you go. I'm peaking on the meter pretty cleanly now. So I'll just, there you go. Thank you for letting me know about that. I do appreciate it. Rightio. All right. Tassie is doing a good job of ruining their tourism industry. Well, anyway. Just scanning through things here. How's the interior? John, the interior, I saw this week a complete built interior. This is the troop carrier interior that I was considering actually upgrading my grey troop carrier's interior with this product that had been developed with Heine Klarman and myself and John Graber. Three of us got together and we've created a product that can be shipped anywhere in the world and even pre-wired. It was a promise that I had made during the development in 22 of the green troop carrier, of the grey troop carrier, most recent one. And because the company that actually built the interior, there was a merger and a swap around, and so that product was never actually made. That's what's happening now. So John, I saw it complete, all the colors powder coated, all of the little fine tuning. I'm so impressed. Very, very, very impressed with that. You're going to love it. So I'm not going to fit it to the grey troop carrier. I will fit it to the 2.8, which is going to be done. That'll be done probably in February or March. So that's what's happening with the troopy interior. Mrs. is getting her RAV4 Hybrid 24. What is going on with your airplane? What is going on with my airplane? Well, what I can do is show you a picture. You may have seen this picture before. And if I click that button, you'll see that's my airplane. Those of you who don't know, I also fly. This has been a mission. It really has been a mission. It arrived in Australia. I imported it from Ireland in March 22. I now have just completed another set. The bureaucracy, Australia is known for its bureaucracy. It's beyond belief. So it's to do with licensing, aircraft maximum takeoff weight, and all of this kind of thing. I did my private pilot's license and I did all the renewals, and then CASA are the patron saint of bureaucracy. So Australia is a very bureaucratic country. It works. The bureaucratic rules are sometimes difficult to negotiate, and the patron saint of this is CASA, Civil Aviation Safety Authority in Australia. It's mind-boggling. They will have two rules on the website, and one says this and another one says that, and when you actually speak to them, depending on the person's point of view, you will have to do that or that. It can be as bad as that. In this case, it was, well, basically I did all my tests, all my flying, and got it. And CASA said, your South African PPL doesn't apply. Why? Because it's no longer active. It is active. Yes, it's no longer current. That's not in the rules. The rule says it has to be current, but it is current. Here's the difficulty. What do you mean by current? A South African private pilot's license lasts 10 years. If you want to stay current flying, every 2 years you do a flight review. It's well within 10 years since I had my private pilot's license actively flying in South Africa, but CASA said, no, it doesn't count. It does count, but they said it doesn't count, and there's nothing I can do about it. So then I had to go and do exams and flight reviews with a different type of license called the RAOS license, which I've now got, and I will be flying my airplane for the first time next week. So over a year and a half of bureaucratic battling, because there was nothing wrong with the airplane. The airplane is exactly the same. It's identical. It was built in 2008. Because it was built in 2008, there were some new rules that came in 2009 that applied to this particular category of light sport aircraft. Yeah, but because it was built in 2008, it doesn't qualify for that. Well, it does, because all of the pipistrel Thinnesses that were like mine, not like mine, identical to mine, built in the same factory, qualify, but mine doesn't. No explanation. CASA is a safety authority, and it is a mountain to climb dealing with them. I will say no more than that, but I am able to fly my aeroplane, and I will be flying it for the first time next week. I'm just waiting for things to cool down a bit. I'll probably go out on Wednesday or Thursday and just fly it on my own and just get used to the airplane. I missed you this year at Oshkosh. You missed me this year at Oshkosh? I have never been to Oshkosh. I would love to go to Oshkosh, but I have never been to Oshkosh. Do you plan to widen the rear track on your new troop carrier as well? Very likely. I will use the same product, the True Tracker. That's the multi-drive True Tracker. It is the most cost-effective way of correcting it. Not the cheapest. I didn't say cheapest. I said cost-effective, because you're properly doing it. I won't go for GBM upgrade. I'll keep it the same. I will also go the lightweight. I see here weight is even more important because you have a potentially less powerful engine. I know stats give it higher power, torque, etc. than the V8, or very similar, but you're still talking about a vehicle with 4 cylinders instead of 8, so I want to keep it light. I won't be fitting, for example, a double wheel carrier at the back. Again, another four-wheel drive that I've owned, that I have never needed a second spare wheel on a trip. Doesn't make sense to me to put 2 spare wheels. The quality of tires I'm running is so high that if I do lose a tire, I can, if I'm doing a very, very rough trip, I'll put a second spare on the roof and strap it to the roof. I've got a very interesting roof conversion that's Australian made. So this one I'm going to be building an Australian made pop-up camper system, not South African for this one. In fact, I'm going more Australian than South African, generally speaking. Awning, the shower privacy curtain, other bits and pieces, they'll be sourced in Australia, not South Africa. So that's kind of one of the thoughts that I've had with the vehicle. I should be getting that vehicle, I think, as I said, before the end of November, and I will be bringing you all the details. Peter's saying it's disappointing that we in New Zealand can't order 78 anymore. The 76 is only available with the 2.8 and an automatic. The V8 and 4-cylinder only available in the 79 single cab and double cab. Now looking to replace my 22 Suzuki Jimny with a Grenadier so that I can camp in the back in a single bed with a space for my dog. So, question for you, Pete. I hear that the Grenadier doesn't allow you really to sleep in the back because you can't flatten the seats. Am I right? Am I wrong? Or will you just take the seats out? Or can you? I think you can actually order it without the back seats. I have a Grenadier, and I'm hoping to shoot that in November. Grenadier will be loaned to me. I have to just tee up the Tates. We're going to be doing a review of that. Right. Thank you, Gear and Loathing, for your super chat. I do appreciate your contribution. Living in Germany, I laugh at the Australian bureaucracy. Yeah, it is a bit of a joke. So I'm going to get back to now the South African thing, because it actually has to do with that in a way. The South Africans watched my video, and I have to really ask you to do this, South Africans. I'm going to say good stuff, and I might say some bad stuff as well. It's a strange thing, if you do a review of a car and you say something bad, so often the only thing is heard and the conclusion. If somebody said, what did he think of the Ineos Grenadier? Oh, he didn't like the back seats because they don't fold properly. Well, that was one, I'm guessing, I haven't test driven it, it's one out of 40 things. And of those 40 things, I liked 37 of them. But your conclusion will be, he thinks the seats are bad, and he'll say something else. So, in the recent video about, here comes my rant, about South African, I started to showcase the work that Paul Marsh and his team are doing, building these interiors for troop carriers. Stunning work. It's as good as anything I've seen in Australia. And in some ways, I could almost say even better. I don't think it is better, but it's every bit as good. Beautifully done. As good as the best in Australia. Let's put it that way. And in the video, I concluded by saying that I find driving in South Africa quite unpleasant because of the aggression on the roads. And the sadness of the power outages and things like that, and I felt sad, and I said in the video, and if I'm wrong, I hope I am wrong, but this is what I'm seeing, and it was from my point of view. It was very much from my point of view, and I wasn't saying it as facts. And several South Africans got so upset with me. I've completely lost respect for you. Well, you didn't hear any of the good stuff I said. None of it. You had your conclusion was, Andrew thinks this. Andrew's about the driving. What did Andrew say about South Africa? He hates us. Hates us all. Why am I building a vehicle in your country, South Africans? Think about that. Why? I said that I don't particularly like driving in South Africa's roads, and I'll share with you why. And I said in the video that I had to think perhaps that I'd... Why is my phone tinging? I hate phones. I said in the video that I didn't particularly enjoy driving in South Africans' roads because of the aggression of the driver, and I'm going to share with you why now. And the rest of you and the other parts of the world, some of you will say, that's just as bad in my country, and some will say, you have to be kidding me. Okay, that is probably where we're going to get the reaction from what I'm now going to tell you. On South Africa's interstate roads and many of their rural roads, there is a yellow line at the edge of the road. So you have dotted white line or solid white line, 2 yellow lines, emergency stopping area. Yes, that's what that is, yellow. That's why it's yellow, emergency stopping area. In South Africa, you are expected, not by law, this is because of the drivers expect this and get very upset and incredibly aggressive if you don't obey this rule to break the law. An emergency driving lane is not for driving in. You may not drive in an emergency driving lane in South Africa. It is against the law. However, if you don't, and you're not doing 130 or 140 plus, then you will be bullied and forced off the road by other drivers. And I drove from Neisner, this troopy, I drove from Neisner to Cape Town, and I can say unequivocally that it was the most unpleasant drive of my entire life. And I've been driving a long time in many different countries. And the reason for it is, of course, the troopy, most of the time I'm sitting at 110, occasionally at 120, and some of the time at 100 up the hills. So I'm doing okay. I'm pretty close to the speed limit. So the emergency stopping lane, if somebody has an emergency, they stop. So every now and again in that emergency stopping lane, you'll see a stopped car. No, that doesn't matter. You have to drive in that lane. So now you have one lane shared by people doing 120 kilometers an hour and stopping in the same lane. And if you are in that lane, you are being courteous. Now, most South African drivers will thank you. So they do recognize the fact that you are letting them pass. But if you don't, oh my God, the anger. Somebody actually in a Porsche Cayenne actually tried to push me off the road. Actually, physically came up next to me and cut in front of me like this. There was a guy in a silver Land Rover Discovery 4. Same thing. Just I'd be driving at 120, and I'd have a car, and I'm not exaggerating, that far from my back bumper at 120 kilometers an hour, and he will stay there. He will stay there even though there's a place to overtake. He will stay there to exert his anger. Get the F over. And this happened to me. I had to make, on that road, I had to make 3 violent maneuvers to avoid a head-on collision, because you must remember here, you've got a car, you've got an emergency stopping yellow line cutting the car in half because there's not enough space on the inside for a car to drive. So, and you've got cars coming in the opposite direction. They will pass you. So now you've got you right on the edge of the road. You've got another car. You're doing 120. These guys want to do 150. Because remember, speed limits mean nothing in South Africa. Nothing. They're irrelevant. And you've got cars coming in this direction with the same scenario. So now you've got a car here in the yellow emergency stopping lanes, and now you've got 2 cars trying to get past them, missing each other by the width of a wing mirror. And that is commonplace in South Africa. And I said in my video, I've got soft. I'm no longer used to this. I'm no longer used to this. And it was an incredibly unpleasant drive. And for somebody who's now living in a country where, you know, people will say, oh, the driving in Perth is terrible. The drivers of Perth are flipping brilliant. They're not, but by comparison, everything is relative. By comparison. So when Gun goes out, I don't worry that she's not going to come back. I just don't worry. And I used to worry a lot. And I mentioned this. I'm building a vehicle in South Africa because I love visiting and I love the bush, and the African thing is part of who I am. It's part of what I am. It will never be erased. But every country has its challenges. Australia, it's the bureaucracy. Andrew, what do you think of Australia? He thinks the bureaucracy is bloody awful and wants to go home. No, I don't. There are so many good things about Australia. The bureaucracy is not one of them. But I can list 100 great parts about Australia. And I can list 100, and you can too, you guys in Australia, list 100 good parts about South Africa. It's, yeah, you'll find some more bad parts than good parts, and I will find bad parts, but really, why compare? You live there, I live here. I want to be there because I want to be there, but I want to live here. So don't have a go at me, for that's what it is like in South Africa. And you guys have got used to driving like that. For you, it's normal. It's no longer normal for me. So I react to it. And I don't want to drive on the open road in South Africa. I had exactly the same when I drove the 105 Landcruiser from Cape Town to Pretoria in 2019. I had to pull over to calm myself down. On the way from Knysna, this year, from Knysna to Cape Town, I pulled myself over twice, pulled over and sat in the car and just said, you've got to cool down. You have to cool down. You just have to deal with this. It's not going away anytime soon, and you've still got 3 hours to go. And this is what I had to do. It's very, very common in South Africa. The N2 that rode down from Knysna down to Cape Town is, I think, South Africa's very worst road. So I was driving on the very worst road that I can think of in South Africa for this kind of behavior, the N2. But as I said, the same thing happened on the N1 up to Pretoria from Cape Town in 2019. It's normal. It's normal. My recent trip to Johannesburg, interestingly enough, collecting the troopie from Pretoria, I actually said to Gwen, I'm amazed on how well the traffic is handling the challenges with dead traffic lights. They were handling it so well. They were patient. They were not, they weren't their normal aggressive stuff. They were patient. They would wait for you to arrive, and then you get through and you try and say, okay, I'm next. Oh, I'm after this grey guy. Okay, cool. You're letting me through. Cool. And this would happen all day long at hundreds of traffic lights around Johannesburg, and nobody yelling at each other and nobody getting. If that happened here, it would be worse than in Johannesburg, my guess. But you've got used to it, so you've come to terms with it. So you understand it, and everybody's living in harmony. I was amazed on how easy it was to drive through the thick of Johannesburg traffic with all the traffic lights broken down, because everybody was behaving themselves. But on the open road, it's a nightmare. It's so unpleasant. So there you go. I've given you a good thing, and I've given you a bad thing. Please remember both of them when sharing with your friends and giving me a hard time. I'm not going to South Africa to criticize South Africa. I'm going to South Africa because on all of my videos, I go on and on about how wonderful it is to be there and how wonderful the people are supporting the show and supporting my projects. And it's brilliant. I love it. I've got very, very close friends and I miss them all the time. And they live in South Africa, and they deal with the challenges of South Africa. They've learned to deal with them. I am no longer used to them. So to me, it's a stretch. Right. Gear and Loathing, have you ever done an 80 series build? No, I haven't. No, the 105 series build, I owned two 105s, and the one I used for my longest ever expedition was 65 days following and finding the source of the Okavango River. And that was when I truly fell in love with the 80 series. 80 series, if those of you don't know, is a 100 series. It's a 105 with an 80 chassis. The chassis is the same axles, same springs, same radius arms, same steering arms. The chassis is the same. The engines were not the same. They didn't put in really nice engines. They put in a 4.2 1HZ normally aspirated bit of a dog engine, same engine in my current Africa troop carrier. Very reliable engine, and they're all over Africa. They're just bazillions of them over Africa. So getting parts and people that know how to fix them is the easiest thing in the world. Can't turbocharge them easily because it tends to blow holes in the top of the piston, so you've got to be very careful turbocharging them. And then there's the 4.5 6-cylinder unbreakable engine. brilliant engine, thirsty as you just drinks fuel, so thirsty, but a great engine. Again, incredibly simple to maintain. People know them very, very well, but they just use a lot of fuel, so they're not great overland touring vehicles. But the chassis, the 100 body, which is better than the 80 body, it's safer, it's got more safety features, it's bigger, it's got more space, nicer driving position. I think it's a nicer vehicle. I have actually driven the 80 quite a bit. I did a trip actually in 2011, 12, and I was driving with somebody who was who had an 80, and he had a 4.5 petrol, but he had the carburetor version. If you thought the EFS, the 4.5 EFI motor was heavy on fuel, the carburetor one, it's horrific, but a great vehicle. I've always said it's Toyota's finest hour, the 80 series, and they made it slightly better with the 105, but with the wrong engines. David, thank you for your contribution, David. How to find a 4x4 to travel Australia for 1 year on a budget of $60,000. Oh, this is travel Australia for a year, so your fuel and accommodation is going to cost you $60,000 if you're on the road for a year. Could cost you $60,000. Diesel's well over $2 a litre here. I would recommend you buy yourself a something like a Hilux that has got basic equipment with it, not overly modified, not big. As soon as you go big lifts and walk away. You want as minimum modifications to the chassis and drivetrain as you can possibly get. Minimum. If it's got a rooftop tent, it's got a kitchen system in the back of some kind, rudimentary kind, and if it's got under 250,000 on it, and you get somebody to review it here, actually get somebody, and I can't refer you to anybody, unfortunately, don't know of anybody, and then get them to review the vehicle. And remember, when you finish your trip, you're going to sell it, so you're going to need most of the 60 for your actual travel. If you want to do a combination of really long trips and some camping and occasional, the game reserves cost money, and the permits for the nature areas cost money, and but you could certainly do it for maybe 30. So 30 for the vehicle and 30 for your travel. Do that. Possible. You're not going to be driving anything in luxury, but just get something that is reasonable, and it's doable. Absolutely doable. Right. I grew up with Darnie. I grew up with the Series 1 Landers, and the only difference between fourth and overdrive was that your facial expression, no increase in speed, and no to yellow lane. No to yellow. How do you say no to yellow line? How is you as a South African say no to a yellow line without actually being physically bullied, where the drivers with cars with so much power, they actually can exert control over the other traffic, will actually try and exert control over you and terrify you? Because remember, you're in a vehicle, I'm in a vehicle that does 120 flat out, and if I'm at a comfortable 105, which is actually the cruising speed of that car, it's comfortable. 105, 108 is kind of where it's comfortable. It uses far more fuel at 120, although you can kind of get it to do 120, and it uses much more fuel, so it's comfortable. Noise levels and all of this kind of thing. How do you live with it? I don't find it easy to live with. Maybe there's a trick that I don't know. So, you spoke about Australian bureaucracy. I've heard Australia has no emission law regulation, which sounds liberating in terms of freedom of personal vehicles for enthusiasts like us. Is this correct? It is not correct. So they have, it's not as stringent as Europe, but they have emission laws. And for example, let's put it this way. I don't quite understand it, but if I take the DPF, the particulate filter, out of my Landcruiser, I'm not actually allowed to. because the Australian design rules have said we need to keep emissions as low as possible, and which I'm actually all for. I mean, I like to, in traffic, I like to not, driving down the highway and something, you know what it used to be like, not, 10, 15 years ago, you would definitely not have the ram air turned on your dashboard because of the stink from the cars around you in front of you. That's no longer the case. We're living in a much cleaner, much healthier environment because of the exhaust gas reticulation and DPFs and all of these different things that have gone to make cars cleaner. And so I'm not against them. I'm really not against them. So is it... No, there are not just freedoms. You can't just do anything. That said, my Range Rover's parked outside, and when I drive that thing, it's anybody behind me, it stinks because it's got no way of cleaning the carbon monoxides out of the exhaust pipe because it's such an old car. But imagine a world where all the cars are like that. It would be intolerable by today's standards. So, Australian bureaucracy is a tough one, and it's also a tough one for businesses. For things like this, it's far more stringent. For example, it's like England when it comes to health and safety, which is far more stringent than, say, Europe. Far more stringent. It's very similar to the UK in terms of health and safety here. You have to wear high visibility. I have a high visibility jacket just packed in my Landcruiser. If I'm going somewhere, I might say high visibility jacket, like they did at the port when I went to fetch my aeroplane. They said, yeah, there's the plane there, I need to go into, I said, high vis, you got high vis? Yeah, I've got a high vis. Some will even say you need boots. So they wouldn't let me inside, because inside I need boots. But outside, I didn't need to go outside at the time, high vis. So that kind of thing. So they're very aware in health. I don't have a problem with health and safety. It can get a bit silly sometimes, but I don't have a problem with it. Hey, fewer people are getting injured. And of course on the mines spend many millions every year preventing accidents, because imagine if something goes wrong and they're seen to be negligent or not caring and somebody gets injured. And of course mine sites are potentially dangerous places. So some of the bureaucracy is well served, and other parts of it is just like, well, CASA is, as I've said, is a really difficult thing to get your head around. People now discussing the Africa problem. I hear the bad fuel in Africa from a lot of places. Africa's diesel is not as a high quality as diesel found in Europe or Australia, but vehicles are easily adapted to a higher sulfur fuel diesel content. So in South Africa, and so down to 50 parts per million, and cars handle it quite well. So yes, it's a very good idea in Africa if you're doing trips in Africa, and South Africa is not particularly challenging in this regard, but nor is Botswana, Namibia maybe, Zambia can be a bit of a problem, Zimbabwe can be a bit of a problem, really old fuel bowsers, no investment and things like that. And so add double up on the fuel filtering systems in your car. I've done it with I put the terrain tamer systems in my Africa Troopy, like I've done with my Australian troop carrier, to make sure that that fuel getting to that engine is clean. That said, it can still get through, and if the quality, Paul and I picked up really bad fuel in Kansi in 2013, was it 12? Or it was 13, it was just before I left South Africa. And we were doing a story about fuel filtration, and because we had started the Overland workshop, and we were doing a story about clean fuel and auxiliary fuel filtration system, and ta-da, it happened to us right there and then. We picked up a whole tank full, 90 litres of bad fuel from Kansi. Any opinion on the new hybrid 250 series Landcruisers? We're only getting the hybrid version in North America unless you buy a Lexus with twin turbos. I don't know enough about and I did read that you are only getting the hybrid, and I don't know why would it be. What is the range of the car? And forget about the fact that technically it's a hybrid. What is the range of the car? What's the payload and what is the range? That's your question. And what are the kind of trips you're going to do? And if it's a hybrid, well, is it going to save you on range? Going to give you more range? Sounds like it might, which is good, right? So at the end of the day, the fact that it's hybrid, why would that stop you using it as a vehicle for long distance trips? Yes, a hybrid is going to give you maximum fuel savings in stop-start driving in town. I get it, which is not overlanding. But hey, maybe you'll have the best of both worlds. I wish I knew more about it, but I think we are getting the hybrid here in Australia, but we're also getting the diesel version. Australia has got quite a few. Toyota is probably the leader of the pack when it comes to offering hybrid vehicles, as we know. I love the look of it, though. Gee, that's a good-looking car. The interior, I've always hated the Prado interior. It is so dull, unimaginative. Look at the new one. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. All right. I wanted to tell you guys about Instagram. You know I'm on Instagram, right? So it's 4xoverland_com. Gear and Loathing, I hope that's answered your question. I wish I could give you a little bit more on that vehicle. But, hey, have a look at it. Look at the specifications. I think it could actually work really quite well. So on Instagram, it's 4xoverland_com, and we recently posted a video, and it has, can I quickly look, because it's going up literally by the minute, and we posted it 2 days ago, and it has this this post as, let me see, and I was talking about the camera mounting in my Trippy. So the way I get the sound, the microphone's here, and I explain the camera. Where are you? 2.6 million views. 2.6, there you go there. 2.6 million views. It's not even about 4x4s. Okay, unbelievable. And I have jumped, and I have just passed the 100 last night when I went to sleep. It had just gone over 100,000 followers. We're now at 105,000 followers. So all of those of you on Instagram that have been watching my little clips that I put on Instagram, thank you for that. Appreciate that very much. All right. Those of you watching the podcast, last week I did a podcast, week before last rather, with Paul Marsh. Paul Marsh is an expert on, he supports, how best to put this, he is for decades been primary mechanical support for vintage car transcontinental rallies like London to Sydney and things like that. And he has some fascinating stories. Also a story about his injury on one of these rallies in South America where he was nearly killed. And he likes to use it as a teaching moment because he learned, you know, he got to the point where he realized he was doing something that he would never let anybody else do. But because of pressures and because of outside influences and because of outside things, he found, you know, often accidents and challenges when we're overland, it's like what they say about air accidents. It's never one thing. It's this plus that plus that plus that end result. Same with Paul's accident. It was a whole lot of things just stacked up against him. And it ended well because he survived. But he was lucky, and it's a fantastic story. So that's the new Journey podcast that is every Sunday. What else? We're going to get some more questions for you guys. If you'd like to send me some more questions, I'm going to see what the Patreons are doing. You're going to send me more questions. Tristan says, doesn't enjoy driving SA, so many these days on the shoulder of the road. Yeah. The heart rate on the smart watch is at its highest almost every day during my commute each morning. Feels like driving is more aggressive than when I first got my license. No, he's absolutely right. It is. Pete is saying, sounds like it's as bad as driving through Romania and Bulgaria back in the 1990s, driving coach tours around Europe. Some of the history of you guys is amazing, the things that you got up with. I love the size of the potholes in Romania, approximately 1 meter and over 300 millimeters deep on average. In Turkey, tried to drive the coach off the road by swinging across into me, and when I went to pass a number of times, in the end I just followed him. 70 kilometers an hour for the next hour. In Morocco, we had someone undertake us when we went around a roundabout. Turning off at the last exit, end up driving over the driver's car and squashing it with a 4-drive Bedford overland truck. Yeah, South Africa is not alone for a difficult place to drive. It truly isn't. That's why I said, I think by being in Australia, I've got soft. Driving here is generally easy. You do find the occasional hoon. Hoons are common here. Guys racing around and putting big turbochargers and superchargers in their Holden Commodores and roaring around and making a lot of noise. That's quite common. But the dangerous driving of general motorists, I don't think they're dangerous. I don't think they are. I can count on one hand the number of times that I've in Australia that I've had to take serious evasive action. Not one hand, one half of a hand, 2 or 3 times. I've lived here 7 years now, where I had to really react now, fast, do something because something's going down. It happened to me 3 times, just driving from Nyland to Cape Town, 3 times. Major evasive action to prevent a catastrophic accident. So I had to really, maybe I've become relaxed. In Australia, in South Africa, you've got to be so much more aware of things happening. And you've got bullies coming up behind you. And they're driving things like Porsche Cayennes, BMW X5s, Ford Rangers, quite a lot of Ford Ranger bullies and Ford Rangers. White Prados, quite common, bullies. Yeah. Do you have any recommendations for careers in overlanding that may offer more freedom to travel? Yeah, you could be a guide, a tour guide taking people on overland trips. I decided not to go that route because I had the ability and skills to tell stories on video. But I would have been very, very bad. The amount of times I have been asked to do a tag along and the amount of times I have said no are exactly the same. I would be terrible at it. I would be truly terrible at it. Because 90% of the clients would be fine, but you'd get that 1% that would drive me bonkers, spare. So no, I don't think it's not an easy thing to make a living out of, to be honest with you. It's really not. It doesn't, you're saying, how can I go on holiday and earn money from it? That's what you're actually asking. This is not an easy thing to do. And delight in watching you enjoy Harry Fisher's food. So we're going to do something quite soon. Harry's been incredibly busy out of the state shooting this whole series that he's doing. Those of you who don't know Harry Fisher, his channel is called Fire to Fork. Does bush cooking. Mainly bush. He does other stuff as well. It's mainly bush cooking. Too old for Instagram. Who, me? I guess got 2.4 million views for a post. Too old? I've just proved you wrong, mate. All right. Check out Green Flight Academy in Sweden, now offering basic flight training in all-electric Pipistrel. Little Pipistrel electric. Approximately the range, but expected to increase in coming. Yeah, okay, 1 hour range. Yeah. The trainers that I did my now did my RA Oz conversion license endorsement, I should put it that way. actually had a Pipistrel Vario, and they said they've got about a 1 hour operational, and then you're landing, which is not really long enough for them. They're finding it a little bit frustrating in that regard. 1 hour is minimum. You want to, if you're doing a flight test, you want to be in the air for 1 hour. So, and they can't go very far, and they found it a bit limiting, but very inexpensive. Operational costs are very, very expensive. All right, more questions, guys. Hi from Uruguay. Would you class a G class overlander? Would you take a W463 or the new 464, and why? All right, so he's asking about the G-Wagon. 460 was the original series G-Wagon, which was basically the most utilitarian G-Wagon you could get was the 460. Then they went the 461 series, which was basically a 463, which was the luxury version, but dumbed down to basic, so they called it the 461. And those, for me, were the best G-Wagons. 463, be careful. Some of them are modified to the point where they have got very large brake calipers. You cannot put smaller wheel rims on them. The shock absorbers are actually light-duty street shock absorbers. They break very, very quickly when off-road and corrugations, and the payload is way down. You can take a 463 and get it right for overlanding. The biggest problem with the G is that its fuel range is not particularly good because the fuel tank is not particularly big. But its payload is good, and my 461, I would love to own a 461. I love those cars. I had twice. I had two different versions of the 290 GD. They had the 5-cylinder, 2.9 litre, 5-cylinder engine, and which was actually superseded by a was a 2.7 engine, which was actually a better engine, more powerful engine, and I loved that car. And the best off-roader I've ever driven, by far, by a long way. Much better off-roader than a troop carrier, and troop carrier is good off-road, really very accomplished off-road machine. Better. It's as good. A G-Wagon is as good, almost as good as an old Defender with lockers. Almost as good. Doesn't quite have the clearance of the Defender, but it's very close. But at that point, the difference is really the driving skill, not the car itself, but really good. 464, I haven't looked at the 464, but I've been watching videos, and the 464 looks truly awesome. Independent front suspension, but somehow that thing has got incredible off-road ability. So I would love a 464. If I had a 464, I would convert it into Overlander for Australia. I would, but you can't get them here. It's the one vehicle where I would say, you know something, I think I might get rid of my Troopy and build up a 464. Honestly, it might be. It would be that much of a challenge to me because it is such an amazing platform. That lady you knew in South Africa is no longer alive. Please do more of those who have flew west. Do more of those who have flown west? Oh. Well, I don't really have. Charlotte du Toit was this pioneer in South Africa, in the South Africa accessory industry. She was just a lovely lady. We did a trip together. I never did any videos on that trip. It was all really for a book, and there was a couple of episodes for a TV series, so there is good footage. How would you feel? Here's a question for you guys now. Serious question. I want you to answer me, please. How would you feel is if I took some old footage like that, for example, that was shot in 2001. We had a convoy. We had a Land Rover. There were two Land Rover V8s, Defenders. There was a L200 Mitsubishi pickup pulling a trailer, and there was my 290 GD G-Wagon and my family, and that was in 2001, my young family. And I could retell that story because I've got all the footage, but the video quality is going to be very low because it was shot on standard definition. Gwyn and I did a trip together to a place called Kutsi. The Kutsi Game Reserve is in Botswana. We were living in Johannesburg at the time. It was about a 1 hour drive from, 1 day drive from Johannesburg, so most of the day to get there. Actually, a little bit more. We would overnight somewhere. But anyway, the footage is really old. The story's wonderful, but the footage is really old. The sound quality, most of it was really good, and it was my early days of content creating. And that, for example, the Coetzee trip, has never been shown anywhere. I've shown the occasional clip on video stories. How would you respond to that? Yes or no? Because it's old. Yes? It would be great. Darien Gap footage, the Darien Gap footage was magical. Yeah, it wasn't my footage. Morning from South Africa. You inspired us to start overlanding a year ago. Our next trip is the Drakensberg. Thank you. My Rowan, thank you for your vote of confidence. Appreciate it. Get a professional to clean up the footage. So I have software to clean up the footage. You can't clean up the footage to make it look high definition. You just can't. It's high quality, but it's standard definition. You can't make it high definition. It's not possible. You can make it look better, which I've got software to do, but it's not going to look new. Okay. You would love to see it, of course. Yes, it would take a good lot of editing, but I think you could do it. Yes, it would take a lot of editing. But I've got the footage, and I haven't told the story. Okay, any of you said, no, you wouldn't be really interested. If you're not interested, tell me. And tell me why, if you could. If it wouldn't be of any interest to you, just give me a message and tell me why. Because I was actually looking at the footage of Gwyn and I. Gwyn was just after we were married or just before we were married? And we went, and we had such basic equipment. We were in the Coetzee Reserve in the Kalahari, my favourite place in the world, and just kind of sitting, and then it started to rain, and the springbok, the antelope, were walking on the pan surface, but the mud from the pan was clinging to their paws and so they were walking with these big clumps. You can't see it clearly because the cameras were very rudimentary and the quality, the resolution is low. So that's not going to be my usual beautiful footage. It's not. Hopefully I can tell a decent story. It would be awesome. I certainly would love to see it. Okay, I can do that. I'll do it if you like. I'll do it. Big editing job. Huge editing job, but I've kept all the footage. And perhaps what I should do is I should do the narrative in the present tense like I do now. I'm on the road. We are on the road. And tonight we're hoping to, that kind of stuff. So it becomes more present, even though it's 20 plus years ago. All right, I made a list of stuff here for things that I had to. The last thing I need to talk to you about, Gwyn has released a new course on the Overland Workshop and her expertise when it comes to, in fact, the video went out today. The video went out this morning. We did a little podcast about it. So that course, her course is, she's a genius when it comes to packing and preparing food for expedition. And so, for example, we don't take tomatoes with us. We actually dry them first, and then we have as many tomatoes as we need, and you rehydrate them. Costs a couple of minutes in time to rehydrate them, and you've got as many fresh tomatoes as you need. They never go bad. They never go off. Don't take any room space in the fridge, and when you come home, the stuff that you haven't used is still fine. You can just continue to use it. That's one example. She does it with mushrooms and you name it. Okay. So that whole course, and actually part of it is actually storage of food as well. So we have a food storage program, and that's part of it. Canning, she talks about canning, and we take food from our house. We'll take a stew from our house, and it takes minutes, and we've got a delicious fresh meat stew. It takes 10 minutes around the camp to do it, if that. It's brilliant. Brilliant. So you still have a fire and stuff when you can, but if you're in transit and you want a good meal for the family, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. Can the stuff. Prepare it and can it. It's like opening a can. But you do it yourself, the way Gwyn says, you can have these fresh meals in an instant. It's a no-brainer. It's so good. And there's no wastage. And suddenly your fridge is too big. Just like that, your fridge is twice the size it used to be, because you've done this. You still carry your fresh meat for your barbie, whatever, and your lettuce. You need lettuce. But it's brilliant. Anyway, so that's available on the Overland Workshop. That's overland-workshop.com. Right. One last thing. I discovered, the new Defender has become my Pajero. My Pajero, the car that I love to hate. Actually, it's not the case. I don't hate the Pajero. I just had a go at the people, particularly South African Pajero owners, that reacted the way they did about my story about a vehicle that it's not a terrible car. I don't think it's a great car, but I don't think it's a terrible car. I don't think it's a bad car. I think with a few modifications, Pajero can actually do quite well as a car. And I would say to people, yeah, buy one. Do a few tweaks, sort out the problems, and you've got yourself a pretty good off-roader and pretty good overlander. I can't say the same for the new Defender, because I discovered the other day that I was wrong. Land Rover have taken a very, very important part of the old pre-2015 Defender, and they've incorporated it into the new one. It leaks. They don't all leak, but in the footwell, I remember with my one, I would drive along and I would have a drop of water onto my driver's foot, right on. My dad's Range Rover, same thing. He would drive in very heavy rain with a right foot in a paper bag to stop it getting wet. My Defender did the same, but my Defender, the water came in from a vent at the back, ran forward along the inside of the roof, dropped down the A-pillar onto my foot. The new Defender, the water is probably coming in from the outside down the A-pillar, and they haven't sealed the bottom. And I don't think it's on every single one of them, but I know of one. Okay, I've been inundated with people reporting this. No, not inundated, one. But it just made me smile. So that was the one character of the old Defender that they did put in the new one. Anyway, so I've got nothing else to talk about, so you better, guys, get to give me. What's the time now? It is, we've been going for an hour and 16 minutes approximately. Give me some questions, and I'll be happy to answer them, and then I'm going to call it quits. Let me restore that page, and let's see. Okay. Camera Nomadic is a Patreon who asks me lots of very good questions. Hello, Mr. Camera Nomadic. I actually don't know your name. The Osmo. Here's my frustration with action cameras. Sound. The inbuilt microphones are rubbish. So you put an external microphone on them, and then they're susceptible to wind noise. So you put a windsock on them, and they're possible. Not great, possible. It's the same with the GoPros, it's the same with the Osmos, it's the same with all of them. In my camera, I have in the car, on the roof mount, I have an Osmo 2 with the handle. The handle has an audio transmitter. With it comes an audio receiver. I put the audio receiver next to my face. I have the microphone coming down here, plugged into the audio receiver, and as I turn on the Osmo 2, I can now control it from the little microphone right above my head. So I don't have to lean over and turn on the camera. I can just turn it on from here. It works 80% of the time. Sometimes they don't link. Most of the time they do. They do enough times for it to be reasonably reliable. I use it on canning, for example. I would turn it on, roll camera. The trouble is the tiny little red light telling me I'm recording was really bright outside. You can't actually see it, so you're not actually sure you're recording. Little things like this that are a little annoying. But really nice audio quality. Because at the end of the day, it's actually more important to get really nice audio quality than it is to get really nice video quality. It's more important. So that's the trouble with all of these action cameras. They don't have audio solutions. It's as if the makers don't realize that audio is important, or they don't give it the attention that they should do. They did with the Osmo 2. The Osmo 3, they've done the similar thing, and the Osmo 3, this is the one that's been, this is the Osmo Pocket, not Osmo Action, Osmo Pocket. I'm using a Pocket 2. Pocket 3 shoots 10-bit. It's got a bigger sensor, which is going to mean it's going to be better in low light. The trouble is with the Osmo 2, it's poor in low light. So I would only use it in the car and occasionally outside, but generally speaking only, because of the low light issues. And so I have fought all my life to get a good, simple, high quality internal car camera that is easy to control, and I have control over the audio. Good quality audio inputs. It's a real problem. The trouble also with the Osmo 2, because it's long and thin, how do you mount it? When you've got a small camera, it's easy to mount a small camera anywhere. The Osmo is long and thin and it's got a screw at the bottom. So if there's any vibration, the whole camera sits and does this. It's hopeless. So in one thing, so many of these cameras, in one way, they're really good. In other ways, how am I going to mount it? I've been trying to mount my Osmo 2 in my aircraft, gave up. Because I need to be able to hold it next to the actual head itself, because I want to use the audio system. I've got an audio system in my aircraft where I plug in that little microphone box that I described. I plug it into my intercom. It's just a little separate little box that was made for me years ago when I was flying. I'm talking 15, 20 years ago. It was made for me. Works brilliantly. Works superbly. Doesn't interfere with the aircraft system at all. Just takes a lead from it into audio, plug it in, and I now can record directly from my headset. You can't hear the engine of the aircraft or anything like that, but you can hear what I'm saying. It's one or the other. It can't be both. If it would be both, it would have to be two separate channels, and that's starting to get complicated. Not impossible, but complicated. So, but because the Osmo is mounted at the bottom, the aircraft vibration is hopeless. I can't find a solution to it. So what am I going to do? Don't know. I've got to still work. I've still got to work at it. So I hope that helps you. That's the and GoPros. I've got the GoPro, the latest GoPros at a 15. It's again, software-wise, it's poor. It's okay. Really, I think generally speaking, DJI make better cameras. Do I ever use external monitors for my video work? Yes, I do. I have a Shinobi 5-inch, which I mount on top of my camera. I don't mount it all the time, but I mount it often enough for, and it's a very small, simple, lightweight, nice quality. It was about $450, I seem to remember. Ruan, what is your most favorite destination in South Africa? South Africa, because remember we're talking here not about any of the other countries bordering South Africa, but the Richtersveld, I think, is my favorite destination. I can say the Richtersveld. What is your experience with Kony Raid heavy track shocks? Okay, looking to install them on your 80 series. I had Kony Raids on my Landcruiser 105. I had Old Man Emu Springs. I cannot remember the rating. They were probably 400s, guess, with Kony Raids. Brilliant. Do something though. The Kony Raids rubber bushes are quite soft. Do not replace them. Use the original bushes, get some spares, and carry the spares. Because they tend to wear out quickly, but they're that way because you don't get as much vibration through the chassis. I've heard some people say, oh, they wear out. Yeah, they're that way for a reason. Don't change them. Okay. Is Torn Trousers available in South Africa? At which outlets? Torn Trousers is available on Amazon. Do you get Amazon in South Africa? I assume you do. Can get Amazon. You can get a hard copy, or you can download a digital copy on Amazon now. It's not available in bookstores or any other store in South Africa. None of my books are available in South Africa anymore. But you can order them all on Amazon. Right. What is your opinion on the Jeep Gladiator pickup for overlanding? Again, it's the same as any car. What's the payload? What is the range? Remember, you're converting payload into range. So you put a camper on it. What's going to happen with the load and the front rear axle loading? What's the balance going to be like? And how much fuel can you carry? And how much range can you do once fully packed with your water and your camping equipment and your tent and your camper and everything? That's how you, any question with a vehicle on how good is it going to be overlander, you go down to the basics, the nuts and bolts of it. It's got nothing to do with the brand, the engine, or anything like that. Fuel economy, range, payload, and the distribution of that range and payload on the car. And then you can say, well, it's got the equipment that I want for overlanding. How's it going to do now? Figure it out. Oh, well, I can only get 250 miles out of the standard tank, and I can load it to maximum GVM, and I've only got 600 miles. Oh, okay, 600 miles might be okay for the kind of trip I want to do. Then you have to say, is it? 600 miles good enough? Then go for it, build it. That's a simplistic way of looking at it, but at the end of the day, those are the nuts and bolts of designing an overland vehicle. Any plans to tour Europe, Scandinavia? I would love to do Scandinavia. Again, I've said, here's the challenge with any country that I explore. I need a vehicle suitable for the kind of traveling that I'm going to be doing. And if I'm going to go to Scandinavia, I'm going to want to do several countries, very interesting places, hopefully remote, so I'm going to need to be comfortable. Okay, I'm not 25 anymore. I need to have a shower if I'm in the bush every second day, and need something, and I need a certain level of comfort when sleeping. I'm not saying I have to be coddled in a hotel. That's not what I'm interested in. I hate hotels. Okay, but I need a certain level of comfort, and that the reason for that is, remember, I'm working, filming. I'm with Gwyn. We're both working, filming, gathering the content, and if we're loving the experience, the content just rolls out. We love the experience so much more when the vehicle we're driving and traveling with and that is supporting us is doing its job well. Makes a massive difference to the story. Makes a massive difference to where we want to go, how long we want to be out in the wilderness. Makes a huge difference. So just give that some thought. I don't have any plans for Scandinavia and Europe, but I'd love to go for Iceland, for example. Very expensive destination, very expensive to rent cars and things like that. It is certainly a thought. Whether I'll do it again, I'm thinking, are we going to go to the United States next year? Probably not. I'm not discounting it completely, but again, I will only go to the United States if I have a vehicle suitable to do something amazing, and I wanted to drive the full height of North America, from New Mexico all the way up to Prudhoe Bay, something like that. And I need a vehicle to support me, and that's going to take at least 3 weeks. I need a vehicle to support me. It has to be a van. I have to be able to get out of the weather. I'm doing a video now. I've got it still on my edit bench. What vehicle would I build if I was in North America? And the principle is, again, support you. So it's what kind of trips do you want to do? What range do you need? How much comfort do you need? And comfort means how much camping equipment and comfort are you going to carry with you? Food you're going to carry with you, and water, etc. And how's the payload? Now what range have we got to work with now we've loaded the car? You see, it's the same basic thing. You gave Church House Classics a copy of Torn Trousers. I actually emailed Richard this. I want to interview him for the next journey. He'd be a good guy to interview. He's a funny bugger. Right. So thank you so much, Andrew. I can't wait for your next video to come out. So that is, again, to repeat, on Wednesday, the colour reveal of the Africa Landcruiser. I think it's my favourite video of the entire series. It's coming out on Wednesday. In fact, Patreons, you'll get it later today. And the rest of you are going to have to wait till Wednesday. Sorry. It's called business. For general overlanding, is there anywhere that a competent soft roader, like a forest or X-Trail, can't go that a traditional 4x4 can? The answer is yes, with a capital Y. Okay, but wait for me. Okay. I currently have a Forester, but thinking that it should upgrade to a real 4x4. So here's the deal. The best four-wheel drives need two components to make them effective off-roaders. Remember, off-roaders, not overlanders. Overland, you can go overland in a Toyota Corolla. So whatever you're driving, you have to say, okay, what kind of terrain am I driving over? What will likely fail? Tires. Okay, upgrade my tires. I don't need four-wheel drive, but this is a rough road, rough track. It's going to be a long distance. I don't need to go off-road. It's just rough and hot. So what am I going to do? Well, I might have to upgrade the springs a bit to get a little bit more payload, and I might have to change the tires because the road tires will just fall apart, first thing. So you can go overlanding on almost anything. All right. Again, it's a case of what comfort levels do I want? Do I need or do I want? So you need, that's your minimum, that's your baseline. I need that. Want, well, do I need a real 4x4 to get that? In terms of places that you can reach, where do I start? The two components for an off-roader that you need good clearance and you need low range gearing. There is no escape, none. Anybody who says, and I've heard it, oh, Softroad can go almost, sure, almost. What's the difference? That's the difference. And I'll give you an example. When you're driving in a four-wheel drive and the road's a bit rough and you know the campsite's ahead of you and okay, we'll be there in an hour's time, this is cool. In the back of your mind, you're thinking to yourself, I kind of wouldn't mind if it got a bit slippery. I hope there's a bit of a technical piece ahead. Oh, it looks like an interesting technical piece. Okay, let's see how your mate gets up there. Oh, he slipped on that bit there. Okay, he did pretty well. I'm going to try a slightly different line. See, it's part of off-roading as opposed to overlanding. With a car like a Subaru, you might get up that hill with a Subaru. But the mental side is, you're thinking to yourself, shit, I don't know if we can, I'm worried about breaking my car. I'm going to need to rush this a bit because I don't have low range transfer gearing, and so I'm going to have to, well, the last thing you want to do is go too fast and then break the car just because you have to travel faster because you don't have low range gearing. Whereas with a four-wheel drive, you low range gearing, you do nice and slowly, and then maybe you don't get up at that low speed. You go back and you do it a little bit faster because you're looking after the car. You're in the middle of nowhere. You don't want to bend the car. You're learning a little bit how the car handles, and it's exciting. And it gets a little bit more difficult and a little bit more difficult and a little bit more exciting. Okay, and a little bit more technical, and you start learning stuff. With a vehicle like with a Softroader, it's, oh crikey, where are we going to camp if we can't get up here? I'm scared of damaging my vehicle. The mental differences, what you're talking about here. Really, that's it. Because if you put the two cars together and you say which one's going to stop first, obviously the Softroad is going to stop first. But you might be doing trails where they both arrive with no problem at all. But how do you know that? If you're doing true exploration and finding those outback pieces, then you're going to be bolder, happier, more excited, more charged up, more hyped up if you've got a proper off-roader with low gearing and you need clearance. And the Subaru clearance is not really adequate in the standard form for off-road work. I've driven I think the Subaru is a fantastic vehicle. It is a lovely vehicle to drive. I've actually done a lot of gravel road driving in Subarus. I did a trip about 2009, thereabouts, in Lesotho. I did Sani Pass in Lesotho. Did that video ever go onto my YouTube channel? Again, it's old story. I did it in a Subaru Forester. I loved that car. So nice to drive. There's something about it. Brilliant four-wheel drive system, low center of gravity. We weren't heavily laden. We were staying in lodges, so we weren't camping. So it was a lovely vehicle, but it wasn't an off-roader. So we were pushing it to its limits. Yes, we were on road, but the roads are very rough and very, very steep, and it managed well. So, love the film of your wedding. So yes, video quality is secondary to your storytelling and videography. So the wedding video, Gwen and I made public our wedding video. It is on my alternative channel called The Next Journey. And when we celebrated 30 years married, I posted, and it was a very unpopular video. And I think because people thought, "Ooh, wedding video," and ran away and hid. This is like no other wedding video you have ever seen. I guarantee it. So go and watch it. If you haven't watched, if you said yes to any of those things, yes, you want go and look at our wedding picture. It's all about four-wheel drives. Yes, there is a wedding in it. Our honeymoon.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Stupid laptop. If you think it's a good idea of me taking old footage and telling a story, there's one, my wedding video. Go and have a look at it. It's on my alternative channel. John Ruth posts old videos, and the video quality isn't that great, but it gets views. Yeah. It's always the stories. Visuals, you're right. Visuals are nice to have. You're absolutely right. I'll do one or two, and I'll do the Kutsi one. I've got one that was filmed on old style VHS. The video quality is appalling, but man, it was a good story. In the Richtersveld, we had my 110, which suffered a catastrophic steering. The steering arm, the steering box basically has a number of oil seals, and one of them broke, and so all the steering, and so my steering started failing, and then we had two lone defenders from Land Rover South Africa, and both broke down. And we managed to get them, because all those old style vehicles, you could actually, one of them we actually replaced the shock absorbers on our cost. They were press cars. And the other one, the air conditioner failed, but we got them. But it was a fantastic story. It wasn't about the cars. It's a fantastic story with all friends of ours. And yeah, I don't know if I've got original footage. I don't think I've got original footage. The quality will be not very good, but it's a really lovely story. Remember, I've been doing this overlaying things for a long, long, long time. Add subtle voiceover where required to bring some present day contact yourself. Nathan, that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's the way to do it, is to bring it current by telling the story as it was, but also in that present tense if it was happening then, but a combination of me telling the story now of what it was like then. Something like that. I think it's gonna be good. Somebody said classic. What did I do that was classic? Defender intergenerational trauma. ITT. DTT. That's some rare insecticide was called DTT. That was DDT. This is DTT. I procrastinate. What is your most favourite destination in South Africa? I've answered that. I follow a bloke he does recoveries. He reckons Subarus is the only car that can go further than it can return. Always recovering from them being stuck. Yeah, it's a lovely car. It's a fantastic Subaru's fantastic car. The Forester is by far my favourite Subaru. It's a really, really nice car. What is your opinion on Ironman 4x4 suspension and products? Okay, Fernando, Ironman. There is such a thing, and there's such a thing as, you want to, I assume you're looking at suspension because you want to upgrade your suspension. That's why you're looking at suspension options, because you want to upgrade your suspension. What do you mean by upgrade? Carry more payload, more axle travel, more comfort, more clearance. What do you mean by upgrade? Ironman will, I am generalizing, give you more clearance, give you more payload, give you more strength. They are, I've driven a number of Ironman equipped vehicles, and they all have one thing in common. The ride is appalling. Honestly, I drove an LX 470 in America in 2017 with Jeremy. Kate was with me, and we were traveling across the parts of Oregon. We went up to the plane crash. You saw that video? And honestly, the ride was horrendous. You could feel everything through the chassis. It had the foam shocks and their upgraded springs on an LX 470, and I know how well an LX 470 drives. I know how well it drives. Its ride is excellent. This ride was appalling. I remember not believing how bad it was. And I got out, and the chap who supported us and loaned us the vehicle, and I think they were the Ironman distributors, if I remember correctly, and I said, could I drive your Tacoma for a bit? I'd like to get a comparison. Yeah, no worries, Andrew. American accent. No worries, Andrew. Not like that, something like that. No problem, Andrew. Jump in. I drove in his Tacoma, and the ride was appalling. It was hideous. I could not believe what was happening. I then said to Jeremy, who was driving his Tundra that had a overloaded, worn-out Old Man Emu suspension system in it. I said, please can I drive yours? I need a point of comparison. Is the road, it doesn't look that rough. I don't get it. So I drove in his Tundra, and I refused to give it back. It was like driving on a magic carpet. And it was overloaded and an old worn suspension system. So I don't knock products for the sake of knocking them, but if you want to upgrade your ride comfort, Ironman is, in my opinion, the wrong way of going. If you want to make things strong, very, very strong, it's got a good reputation for strength, and might give you the lift that you're talking about and all of those other things. But what do you want to do with your vehicle? Decide what kind of upgrade you want to do with your vehicle, and then decide what you... Ironman is cheap, I believe. It's inexpensive than the competition for a reason. Everything is. Everything is less expensive for a reason. Okay. That is my opinion about Ironman. They're not, I don't discount them, because some people, they're saying, we just want a lift, and we want this thing to be as strong as anything. Well, that's worth considering then. It's all about priorities. Has working with your daughter changed your marketing and sales with regard to social media, physical products in general? How often do you think about business and marketing strategy? Again, this is from Cameron Nomadic. I employ contract workers, both my daughters. They do two different things. Kate runs a course called Launch Queen. She's got an exceptional business where she basically runs our Overland Workshop course, and she does she built it, and that's her thing. And then my other daughter, Stephanie, my eldest daughter, helps with social media presence. And we talk about marketing and strategy every week. We have a meeting every single week, and we talk about it every single week, because they've become experts in their fields. So, and working with your kids when they turn out to be really good at what they do, it's fun. It's just plain fun. We enjoy it. We enjoy working together. We always have enjoyed working together. You could do it in a way like an old explorer sitting by the fireplace and talking to the camera about his adventures, a sort of an introduction, and then put the old footage with a few voiceover. I could do that, Julian. It's a kind of combination of both. But if I was near a fireplace, I'd be setting myself as this old bloke. He can't stand anymore and farts a lot, sitting with an old fireplace with his golden retriever next to him, who's also old and grey. I don't really want to present that kind of oldie picture, so I think I'd prefer to just not do a presentation to camera and just let the story roll, and just do the voiceover as you suggested to kind of support the thing. I think I'll do that. It would have to do with the spring rates. Yes, Drew, it would have to do with the spring rates. These were the agents. These are the agents for these cars in Australia, agents for these Ironman suspension, and they had set them up and tuned them because I was coming in as press to review them. They weren't spring rates. It was just wrong. So maybe he got it catastrophically wrong with both. It's possible, but I'll give you another example. In South Africa in 2019, I was loaned a Landcruiser 100, had the one at this beautiful, one of the Toyota's best ever engines, the 1HD FE. It's the 4.2 multi-valve turbo diesel motor put in the 100 series, never in the 105 but in the 100 series. And he loaned this vehicle to me, and I know that vehicle well. I've driven it quite a lot. Fantastic car. I got in it and drove it around, and after a few minutes, not very long, I thought it's very hard, and after a while I realized there's something wrong with this car. I know what this thing is supposed to drive like. That Ironman suspension and springs in it. It was horrible. From a car that has a superb ride to a car that had a crap ride. Same car. I've never driven one with a good ride with Ironman suspension. Never. And I've probably driven 5 or 6, 7 vehicles with Ironman suspension. And I've always thought to myself, ride is hideous. It's not difficult getting a ride good on an upgrade on suspension. I promise you it's not difficult. It's easy. No, comparisons of routes and comparisons. No, I won't do that. The video that we did on our wedding, we went to a place called Lupala Island, which no longer exists. It's not on any of the maps anymore. The names have changed, and we took a travel book with us, and it was so obvious that the travel book, they had never been there because it was completely wrong, and it was one of the motivations Gwen and I had to start our own travel book business, which we did in South Africa. After that, we started writing our own books. And that area of Lupala, we're going to go back there next year in April, May. We're going to take the new cruiser and we're going to go back to Lupala Island, that same place that we took. And I will then reintroduce. A lot of that footage is in the wedding video. A lot of it is in the wedding video. So if you're interested, again, go and have a look at that wedding video on my other channel, The Next Journey, and look at the wedding video, because if you like the idea, you will love that. As I said before, it is nothing like a wedding video you have ever seen before, I guarantee it. Are you going to respond to a super chat? Did I miss one? No, it was a hybrid. 80 series. How do you find travel for Australia? 6,000. Oh, okay. Dennis, it must be you. Thank you, Dennis. I'm so sorry I missed it. It's supposed to actually flag it at the top of the page, and it's not doing it this time. I don't know why. Have you thought about adding a thank you button on your videos? I've had the experience with Patreon and will never use it. I have, and I've done it recently. You're not the first person to ask this thing. I added, there's a little join button on the channel, and thank you for asking, Dennis. There's a little join button on the channel that you can just click, and then you can post. There's also a thing called Buy Me a Coffee, and that is actually a thing called buymeacoffee.com. and you can just buy me a coffee. That is actually super chats on Google take about 30%, and Patreon and buy me a coffee I think take 5%. So it's, but whatever is easiest, honestly, whatever is the most convenient, because I know some people have had bad experiences with Patreon. Patreon's a very valuable service to me. It doesn't cost me a lot, and it works for me. But some people have got a problem with it, and I respect that. So there is an alternative. So sorry, Dennis, for missing you. Let me know how it goes if there's a problem. I'm sure you have an month-old footage. It would be great to watch, especially if you have of the roots. Okay. All right. Yes, Dennis, it was you. Sorry about missing that. I hope I haven't missed any others. As I said, normally, right at the top of the page, you have a list of all of the super chats, so I can scan through them. Right, what else are they going from Johannesburg? There's some of the earlier ones. Let's go back and see what else have I missed. I think I'm probably going to wrap this up, guys. Would you ever do another older vehicle build like with the 105 South Africa build? Gear and Loathing. I'm going to repeat the question. Would you ever do another older vehicle build like the 105 South Africa build? I'm busy doing one right now. We're right in the middle of it. I'm a little surprised at the question. See, here's the thing with YouTube. Unless you tell YouTube to instruct them, tell me when Andrew posts a video. If you don't, if you just subscribe, just subscribing isn't enough. By clicking the annotations, it's telling YouTube when Andrew posts a video, I want to know about it. Because YouTube guesses, and they get it wrong a lot. The very fact that you are asking me, would I do another old build? We're just in the middle of it. We're on episode 22 already. And the colour reveal is happening on Wednesday. That's 22. You've missed. Yeah, I don't trust YouTube. YouTube is hopeless when it comes to that kind of thing. Even the playlist, somebody complained to me the other day and said, I can't find any other videos. I do my best to make the playlists work for YouTube. YouTube is hopeless, honestly. You know, you can't trust them at all. I do my best by releasing my series on video on demand on Vimeo. Those, if you want to binge watch all the shows, you can get them on there. I try and help as much as I possibly can for you guys who are interested in the show and interested in following the stories to follow the stories. But I have to rely on YouTube to a certain degree. You mustn't rely on YouTube. Just click that notifications bell if you're interested. It's the only way. Okay, last one. Fitted raw nitro front shocks. They lasted a week, cost me a lot more money, and have the problem fixed. Might be suitable for soft forward, but not for Outback WA. So the nitro front shocks, the fitted raw nitro front shocks. Raw, what is raw? I don't know, RAW. All right. The new build didn't need a frame up resto, or was rolled over with new roof. Don't understand what you're talking about, to be honest with you. What do you think of the Landcruiser 70 series converted into a war bus? Do you think it would be converted into an overlander? And where the rooftop goes, you could put a large tent. I don't know what. Sorry, I'm not sure what you're talking about, to be honest with you. I don't know what a war bus is. All right. Okay, I'm gonna. All notifications not working. You're kidding me. All notifications is not working on my channel. You're not serious. Okay, I'll check it out. It's not up to me to make it. Imagine that. No, I can't be. All notifications not working. Okay, well, thanks. That's worrying. That's Very, very worrying. I'm sure it works. Anyway, I will. It does work because I go onto my other channel and then go into Forex Overland and I've clicked all notifications. Anyway, I will double check that. Raw is the brand. Don't know it. I don't know RAW at all. Never heard of it. I've always been a fan of the Ironman stuff with just their foam cell shocks. I've watched a few videos on it and it seems really good. Maybe the springs fitted were not a good match. Look, I don't know. I'm not speaking for everybody with Julia. That's my experience with Ironman. That was the question. What was your experience with Ironman? That was my... I've had other people saying to me that they really like the foam shocks. What do you like about them? What is it about them that you like? Is the other question. So I'm going to say cheerio now. Have you ever considered doing any of the trails in the US like Trans-America, Backcountry, Discovery Roads or other? Yes, I have considered it, and as I've mentioned before, I've never had suitable vehicles for doing long-distance trips in the US. I've never had a vehicle suitable. That is why I haven't done it. I've done a few shorter trails, but the long-distance ones, I'd love one, but I would need a vehicle. YouTube are also putting adverts in the middle of your live stream, which is very annoying. Maybe I didn't turn that off. That would be very annoying. That would just send people running away. Okay, so I'll make sure that's turned off in future. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. This week we're ongoing with next week with another podcast on the next journey, something very, very interesting. Somebody whose yacht started sinking while they were sailing from New Zealand to Tonga, actually returning to New Zealand from Tonga. Their boat started sinking and they had 6 kids on board. That's a great story, and the colour reveal, as I said, and of course those of you who are interested, my troop carrier is for sale. My grey troop carrier is going up for sale, and I'll post a video probably next weekend, end of the week, explaining what's for sale. But if you want to find out details of that, you can actually go onto my website, forexoverland.com, and look under the Hero Vehicles section, listing all the vehicles we've built, and you will see that if you want to find out details of that, you can do so. Again, everybody, have a very happy Sunday, and I'll see you for the next live, as you know, first Sunday of every